Hey guys, Welsknight here, and welcome back to another episode of Kingdoms. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. I'm having a fantastic day. I'm in the mood for a little bit of grind, honestly. I want to do some grinding. So we're going to do kind of a whole bunch of different stuff over the course of this episode. I feel like doing some branch mining. I feel like doing some other grinding and stuff like that. And as a result, today is going to be a little bit of a talky episode. I was kind of thinking about topics, because, obviously, when I have these talky episodes, I do kind of like ramble on and make up whatever. I don't like script the talky episodes for the most part. Occasionally I do if it's like a fairly important topics. It's very rare that I do scripted videos, but I do them from time to time. Like that Minecraft is not dead video that I put out last week. That one was scripted, or at least loosely scripted. And some of that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I kind of just, decide on a topic beforehand, and then I just talk about it for like half an hour. And that's kind of how I do my talky episodes. And I admit, like, I was thinking about topics and potential things I could talk about in these talky episodes. And I was kind of thinking, it would be kind of cool to do a video on sort of the origin of kingdoms. Like, what exactly was it that inspired me to do kingdoms in the style that I do it, right? Like with the whole idea of lore and a connected world and, this sort of like evolving living world. And there was actually quite a few different things that sort of were an inspiration for kingdoms. Things that either I watched or that I was a part of that really inspired me to kind of do Kingdoms as you guys know it now after, I don't know how many years Kingdoms has been around, but it's been a while. I want to say this series is probably like a year and a half old now, if you include season 1, maybe even more than that. I'm not really sure. I don't know exactly when I started Kingdoms. But there was a number of things that kind of contributed to Kingdoms, and I think I'm just going to kind of talk about them in the order in which I was sort of exposed to or aware of them. So basically, back in 2014, August or so of 2014, maybe like late July 2014, somewhere in that time frame, that's when I really started playing Minecraft for the first time. I had played it once very briefly on Xbox 360. I downloaded it on console, and I played it for like maybe 15-20 minutes. I thought it was stupid. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just couldn't get into it. And then I let it sit for years, for quite a long time. Well, maybe not years, but for a long time. It took a long time for me to actually start playing the PC Java version of Minecraft and to try Minecraft again. And eventually I did, and Minecraft is kind of one of those games where, at least back then, to know how to play the game, you had to look up stuff. You had to use the wiki. You had to watch tutorials on YouTube. Like, it was basically a necessity at that point, because we didn't have, like, the crafting guide and, stuff like that. It was really hard to learn even the simple things like crafting recipes, if you didn't have some sort of help from either the wiki or a tutorial or stuff like that. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos that were tutorials. I watched like Paul Soares Jr.'s How to Survive and Thrive. I watched William Strife's The Minecraft Guide. There was a whole bunch of stuff that I watched back then. And I kind of knew what I wanted to do in Minecraft. I knew that I wanted to be a builder because, I played with Legos a lot growing up. I've always been kind of a creative person in that sort of way. I've always loved sort of designing things, whether that's drawing or writing or whatever. So I kind of knew back then even that I wanted to be a builder, that was kind of what I wanted to do with Minecraft. I was never really interested in like coding, making, creating my own mods or command blocks or making, building was kind of what I wanted to do. So I started looking around YouTube for tutorials on building. And there were a ton of them at the time. Obviously, there are tons of them now as well. But back then, the main ones that I watched were, obviously like the standalone tutorials, Corrales, stuff like that. But then I was really looking for stuff that was more about like, not so much how to build a specific thing, not so much like this is how you build this house that you see in the thumbnail, but rather tutorials that were like, these are the ideas behind building. This is how you can design your own thing, and these are the rules that you can kind of follow to make something that in the end looks good. Stuff like, Grian would kind of be a good example of that now, but back then, I don't know when Grian started YouTube, but he really didn't get big until after, like a couple years after I started playing. I don't have his like statistics and stuff in front of me right now, but excuse me. But I feel like Grian didn't really blow up until like a couple years ago, and that he wasn't really like a big name in the Minecraft community on YouTube back then. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was just like living under a rock. That's always possible too. But I feel like Grian wasn't really like a staple of the building community back then like he is now. Nowadays, anytime someone says, I want to learn how to build, not how to build like a specific building, but rather kind of like the general skills that you need to make your own things rather than following a tutorial. Nowadays, everyone would say, go watch Grian. But he wasn't really a figurehead in the Minecraft community back then. So I came across this YouTuber called Good Times with Scar. Some of you may have heard of him. And I watched a lot of Scar, and back then he wasn't a part of Hermitcraft. I obviously wasn't a part of Hermitcraft back then either. And I had just barely started YouTube. I think I started YouTube in September of 2014. I watched Scar for a little while before I started YouTube. I wouldn't say that Scar was like one of my inspirations to start YouTube. I don't think there was really any one person that really inspired me to be a YouTuber or anything like that. But Scar was definitely someone who I watched who kind of really got me interested in building specifically. Not so much making Minecraft videos about building, but rather just kind of the idea of like, this is how you build stuff. I watched a lot of Scar back then. And he had a world. His main, the main staple of his channel back then was his single-player world called Scarland, which is still technically around. I don't think he's actually uploaded a Scarland video in quite a while, but I was talking with him the other day. I think he's actually planning on getting back into it at some point. But anyway, he had this world, this single-player world called Scarland that was like this continuous world that he had played in for ages and ages and ages, for basically since like, I want to say like the beta days of Minecraft, like Minecraft beta something, I think is how old Scarland is. Maybe not quite that old, but long story short, Scarland has been around for a really long time. It's been around for ages. And Scar never really did the thing that a lot of YouTubers do where, they do like 50 episodes or 100 episodes or whatever in their world, and then they reset the world and they start new somewhere else. Like Python, my friend Python, for example, kind of does that, where he doesn't really have like one continuous world that he's played in forever. He has a variety of different worlds, and he resets every so often to kind of keep things interesting. Scar never really did that. He just had this one world that he'd been playing in for ages and ages and ages, and that was his world, and it was Scarland. And that really kind of I thought was really cool, because you could kind of like look back at sort of the history of that world, and you could see all the things that he had created over the years, and you could see his sort of development and his growth as a builder. You could look back at his old stuff and see how bad it was. And you could see how over time he became better and better and better. And that was a really cool thing, to sort of have this world that had so much history in it. And that was sort of something that I eventually decided that I wanted to do, but it took me a while to kind of get to that point. So Scarland was really kind of a big source of inspiration for me, and just kind of this idea that, like, there's this world, right? And it's a continuous world, and it's the world that you play in forever. And that was something that I decided eventually, not right away, but after I had done a couple of Minecraft series, that I decided that I wanted my own continuous, never-ending world. And originally, that world was going to be a series called Welsknight's Realm, which some of you may even remember. But I realized eventually, after, I don't know, 50 episodes or so of that world, that I had made some pretty significant mistakes when planning Welsknight's Realm, and that is to say that I didn't plan Welsknight's Realm. I spent a lot of time kind of trying to decide what I wanted to do and how I wanted to figure things out. I didn't research seeds beforehand at all. I just kind of dove right into it and assumed that I would be able to make it work. And in retrospect, that was really dumb on my part, to like look back at it and go, man, you know, I should have at least like looked up seeds to figure, you know, what ended up happening with Welsknight's Realm was that there were some pretty important biomes that were nowhere near the area where I was building. Like I'd have to look at the seed now, but I seem to remember that like certain biomes were over 10,000 blocks away. And like I didn't really spend a lot of time like developing the lore of that world. There was some lore for sure. But the idea, like, I didn't have everything all connected up in the overworld like I did with Kingdoms, and ultimately, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to start over. I'm just going to start from scratch, I'm going to redo it, and why is it not dark when I'm in here? Is it because I'm holding the torch? Is that what's causing it to not be dark? Do I have lighting on? Is that a thing in pre-release 6? Because I feel like it shouldn't be this light over here. Like, it should definitely be getting darker over here, right? Out of curiosity. I'm a little confused. Yeah, like, look how bright it is. I don't have my gamma. I mean, I'm on brightness bright, but I've been on brightness bright forever. I'm surprised as to why it's not getting darker. Might be a weird pre-release 6 bug. Who knows? Anyway, so I decided ultimately to kind of just go for it and restart. Oh, hello, diamonds. You are what I've been looking for. You are absolutely what I've been looking for. I'm gonna... you know what? We should... Let's just fortune them. That's the smart thing to do. Let's just fortune them now. We'll grab them. We've got a couple more right here. Look at that. 7 diamonds. Like it's nothing. Beautiful. Anyway. So after, ultimately I reached that point. But in the meantime, there were some other things that kind of shaped Kingdoms. Scarland, Good Times with Scar, and his single-player world Scarland were certainly a big source of inspiration for me and of ideas and kind of this concept of like a never-ending world. But the other one, the other big one, as far as YouTube series go, was BOO and his Building with BOO series. He's another one who has had one world for a really long time. It's the current Building with BOO world is actually his second world. I don't remember what happened to his first, but basically he ended up spending a ton of time, and he's spent many years in this world that he's playing in now. He hasn't uploaded in a while, but from all accounts, he's doing well. He's had some family stuff. I'm not going to get into it. But long story short, he had this Building with BOO world that was very similar to Kingdoms in a lot of ways. Or rather, I should say Kingdoms became something that's very similar to Building with BOO in a lot of ways. And he is responsible for a lot of things in relation to my channel. Building a B-dubs is probably like the single largest source of, like, he has probably had more influence on me as a YouTuber than any other YouTuber on the platform. Like, there are so many things that I have learned or been inspired by, or that have somehow influenced my own content in some way, that come from B-dubs, like, I owe the man a debt of gratitude. But the idea of a world that not only lasts forever, but also a world that has a story, right? A world that has atmosphere, and a world that has these different like regions, these different kingdoms and places that you can visit, and they all have this kind of unique style, but they're all in a style that's kind of coherent when taken together, rather than just a conglomeration of different buildings. You know, if you go back and you look at like some of my early Minecraft worlds, or if you look at a lot of people's Minecraft worlds, they don't necessarily have any like common theme in their towns. Maybe they will build a town, but often those towns are just like, today I'm gonna build a barn, and then tomorrow I'm gonna build a skyscraper, and then I'm gonna build a castle, and then, you know, like, there's no like consistent theme. There's no block palette. There's no consistent style in each of these areas. And that's not to say that that's wrong. I mean, there is no right or wrong way to play Minecraft. But B-dubs really kind of taught me that you could make something really cool and really atmospheric and really kind of immersive in this game. If you know, kind of put some thought into the story of what you were building, right? Why do people, people live here? Why do they live here? How do they live? What do they do in their spare time? What kind of houses do they live in? What kind of technology do they have? What's their belief system look like? You know, are they religious? Are they not religious? Do they believe in science? Who do they trade with? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these different types of questions. You know, if you can answer those and you can come up with a proper story for your world, not only can it be a huge source of inspiration and ideas when building, but also it can really kind of give the world life in many ways, right? Like, it becomes, it's not just, at that point, it's not just a Minecraft world, it's a universe. You know, it's a place that exists in your mind and that has a story, and where your imagination can really kind of do incredible things and create stuff, much in the same way that like a writer would develop their own world over time. You know, you look at authors like Tolkien, or like J.K. Rowling, or C.S. Lewis, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you've got all these different things that have been, all these details that have been thought out and planned, and that ultimately kind of get to this place where you're like, this isn't just a world. This isn't just a place that's described. This is a place that I can actually imagine and visualize. And that's a really cool thing. And B-dubs was kind of the guy who taught me through his videos. I actually never spoke with B-dubs until he joined Hermitcraft. But he's the person that kind of taught me through his own videos that you can do that in Minecraft, you know? And that was really one of the big things that kind of cemented my love for this game. That's kind of what made me fall in love with Minecraft, is that ability to build and create worlds. You know, like, that was just such a cool thing. And I learned that from B-dubs. So Scar and B-dubs, those two were hugely responsible for what ultimately became Kingdoms. Not directly. They didn't like tell me I should do it or say, you know, hey, Wells, I think this is something you should do on your channel. It wasn't like that at all, but just from watching their own videos, from watching their videos, you know, that's kind of where I got some of those ideas, like this idea to have this continuous world where everything's all sort of connected together and interacts with each other in different ways. That's totally an idea that I got from watching B-dubs, as an example. Scar taught me not only a lot about design and building and stuff like that, but also just this idea of having this continuous world that shows your progression as a builder and as a player over time. Oh, now it wants to get dark. Why wasn't it getting dark before? I'm so confused. Anyway. And then finally, there was one more. There was one more place, one more thing, one more series on YouTube that really influenced the creation of Kingdoms. In fact, it even influenced the name of Kingdoms, and it was a series that I was a part of. Some of you may already know what I'm talking about. That, of course, is Kingdom Craft, which was a multiplayer server that I played on that was originally created by Iskall and Python, back before I knew Iskall and Python, in fact, and that I was ultimately invited to play on after, I don't know how long Kingdom Craft had existed before I was invited to join. I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months. But ultimately, what Kingdom Craft was what I consider, honestly, like one of the most unique ideas for a multiplayer world that I have ever seen in Minecraft on YouTube. Like, it was just such an incredible concept on paper that even to this day, I kind of look back at it with a little bit of nostalgia. You know, I kind of wish that Kingdom Craft had kept going every now and again. I look back at it and I'm like, man, that was such a cool idea for a series. I would love to do that again, you know? So for those of you who didn't watch Kingdom Craft, and the playlist is still available on my channel, you can go back and watch it. And it was a fantastic series. We did some really cool stuff. But basically, Kingdom Craft in a nutshell was every area is a kingdom, is a region, right? And in fact, Kingdom Craft, from what I've been told by Python and Iskall back then, was that Kingdom Craft was also heavily inspired by B-dubs and his building with B-double-O World, even though he wasn't actually a part of Kingdom Craft. B-dubs wasn't. But basically, it was kind of this concept that you would have all these different kingdoms, and all these different kingdoms had an established block palette and lore and story, etc., etc., etc. But on top of that, what made it really cool as like a multiplayer concept was that as a player on Kingdom Craft, what you owned was the stuff in your inventory and the stuff in your ender chest. That was it. Nobody had a base. Nobody had their own storage room. Nobody had resources that were theirs. Everything was completely and totally shared by the community. It was like communism in Minecraft. Except communism doesn't really work in the real world because the real world is too large of a scale, right? When you have, communism is actually a great idea on paper if the world was perfect and nobody was greedy or had ambitions outside of, what they could contribute to society. But that's not the way the real world works. If you had an actual group of like 5 or 10 people, communism might actually totally work. But in the real world, it's just not a thing that actually works. But I'm getting into a whole different discussion right now. But anyway, long story short, the concept of Kingdom Craft was that you had no resources that were truly yours. The only thing that you as a player actually owned were whatever was in your inventory at the time and whatever was in your ender chest. Everything else was shared between the community. So everyone kind of chipped in and did the grinding for resources. Everybody was working on every project. That was my favorite thing about Kingdom Craft. You know, there was no like Welsknight castle base. There was the kingdom that had a castle that everybody contributed to. You know, Cubfan built the walls, and Python built the cathedral, and I built a bunch of houses, and Stress Monster built more houses, and on it went, right? Like, everybody contributed to every project in some way, and there was a ton of collaboration and a lot of ideas, and we all kind of agreed that, you know, if someone wanted to change what somebody else had done, like that was fine, it was okay, and it was acceptable, and it was just like this really unique concept for a series. And honestly, I would love to do something like it again. But that whole series, Kingdom Craft, was in many ways a huge source of inspiration for Kingdoms. And when Welsknight's realm eventually came to an end, and it became obvious that Kingdom Craft itself was going to come to an end because we had basically all been invited to join Hermitcraft, and we weren't going to have time to do Kingdom Craft and Hermitcraft, you know, I decided I want to keep doing something like this. Not necessarily, you know, I wasn't able to continue it with the multiplayer aspect. Man, the lighting in this pre-release is so weird. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep doing it in the multiplayer aspect, but at the same time, like, there was some really cool stuff, and this idea of having, like, a kingdoms that you built up over time, and that's totally a witch. Hold on. Hi. Yeah, now you're dead. That was a little scary. That whole idea, like, that was hugely influential to Kingdoms as well, or to what eventually became Kingdoms as we know it now. There were many things from many different sources on YouTube that gave me ideas for Kingdoms, or that influenced Kingdoms, or that made me say, I want to do something like that. And Scar, and there were other ones too that I haven't talked about, but Scar, B-Dubs, and Kingdom Craft were probably the biggest three. And it was a really cool experience. Kingdom Craft especially. I mean, obviously, you know, like, I was never part of building with BOO or of Scarland. That would kind of defeat the purpose of having a single-player world, you know, if it wasn't single-player. Mending book, please? Oh, no mending book. But iron is good, and golden apples are good. Let's take those. We'll take the torches as well. I don't really need... Oh, because the torches are in my offhand. Yeah. Okay. What can I get rid of? I don't need 3 arrows. I don't need the glass bottle. Anyway. Now we found this abandoned mine shaft. We'll have to explore this some other time. Because I could spend another entire episode exploring this. But I wanted to talk about those 3 things. I've kind of rambled on about this for a while now, so we're kind of out of time for this episode at this point. But still, you know, I guess the takeaway here, the lesson, if there is one, you know, not every video needs to have a lesson. But I guess the big thing is, like, it's okay to get inspiration from other people, even as a YouTuber. You know, there's a thing on YouTube that, like, if you do something that remotely resembles something that some other YouTuber has done, somebody's going to be like, you're just copying so-and-so. You know, you're copying Sunday because you're not allowed to play Minecraft because only one YouTuber can play Minecraft. You know, I had a comment in a video a few days ago back on Life in the Woods Renaissance that said I copied some other YouTuber who played Life in the Woods Renaissance because they played it first. And I'm like, what do you mean? Multiple YouTubers can't play the same mod pack? But the point is, there's this whole idea on YouTube that you always have to do something, like, unique and different. And in many ways, that's true. You don't want to, like, blatantly copy somebody else's ideas, but it's okay to get inspiration and to be influenced by other creators. I think just about every YouTuber out there has at least one person that has influenced them in their style or in the type of content they make, or maybe the message that they present, or whatever it may be. Everyone is influenced by other people in some way or another, you know? And I think in this case, that's where the inspiration, that's where the influence came for Kingdoms. BOO, Good Times with Scar, and Kingdom Craft as well. And I would love, to go on and on about Kingdom Craft. I could probably do an entire episode talking about the joys of Kingdom Craft. That was, in many ways, one of my favorite series that I have ever done for a huge number of different reasons. It was so much fun. But I have now droned on about this long enough. So tell you what, guys, I'm going to run back to my storage room. I'm going to grab a comment of the day, and I'll be back with you in just a sec. All right, guys, I am back. I got a comment all picked out. This one's from Aleph, who says, do you intend to restore your previous glowstone texture? So last episode, for those of you who don't remember, I revealed the updated Kingdoms texture pack. Also, we've been using it for this entire episode, so if you haven't noticed that we're using new textures, then, well, we're using new textures. Anyway, so one of the changes from the old version of the texture pack to the new one is that I basically stopped the glowstone texture. I used to have a custom glowstone texture. It essentially looked like the prismarine lamp, except yellow. That's basically what it was. It was like the prismarine lamp, but I made it yellow instead. And honestly, I like the new glowstone texture okay. It's a lot better than the old one, I think. I really like the colors in the new glowstone texture. I'm not really a huge fan of the texture itself, but I really like the colors. I think what I want to do is I want to essentially remake, I'm going to completely redo the glowstone texture. And it's not going to be exactly like the old one either. I don't know yet how I want to do it, but it's going to look very much, very different than the old one, and it's going to look different than this one. I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. So I don't intend to restore my previous glowstone texture that I was using, but I also don't intend to keep this one either. I'm going to remake an entirely new one from scratch. But remaking a brand new texture from scratch is a fairly time-consuming process, and I haven't gotten around to it yet. So, in answer to your question, no, I'm not going to restore it. However, yes, I will be remaking it, and it's going to be better than the old one and than the current one, I think. So, yeah, there you go. But I am out of time for this episode, so guys, I gotta call this one here. My friends, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Links in the description below, so check that out as well. Otherwise, my friends, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.